Council operates the cabinet system. So thank you very much for that, Tony Blair. What the cabinet system means is that those of us who are outside of the administration, who basically have no power to determine decisions, sit there and have very limited input into how the county council is actually run. And this is it's not just those of us who are members who are not part of the controlling group. I actually have conversations with Conservative members in quiet corners where they go, "Oh, Sarah, it's all right for you. At least you can ask questions. At least you can speak." So the system actually means that there's large parts of our community who actually have no public representation taking place, which is really, really sad. But we're not here to discuss the shortcomings of local government, because that would be far too interesting. We're going to look at what Greens have achieved on the County Council. So when I arrived there in 2009, in some ways I was very lucky as a single representative. I'd been on the District Council for a number of years, so I knew some of the officers, I'd met them, and I knew some of the other members from the other political parties. And some of them were even friendly. So, and I also had a piece of paper that Darren Johnson wrote in 2006 on being a lone Green councillor. So I printed that out and I stuck it above my desk, and it's actually stayed there ever since. So thank you, Darren. So as a single councillor, and also as a lone member of a political party, it's very difficult to have any input into those systems which are running the council. And it's also quite tricky to actually understand the traditions of the council, who the real power brokers are, who really is holding power in that administration. Because it might not actually be the leader, it's somebody else who's going to take over from the leader that everybody else knows in 18 months' time, but I don't. Which was actually the situation when I arrived at the County Council. And also, as a single individual, it's actually impossible to get to grips with the breadth of the County Council. It's absolutely huge. It's got a turnover of £1 million, basically. You know, it runs the adoption service, it runs the roads, it deals with flooding. It's just vast. It deals with schools. It's really big. It now also deals with public health. So as a single person, to think that you can actually become an expert and understand all of those issues, well, it's beyond me, and I suspect it's beyond most of us. So what do you do? You've got there. We've all worked our socks off. We've got a single person there. What can you do? Well, what you can do is you fly a flag for the Green Party. You actually use your position to make sure that a Green voice is heard, not just across the Stroud district now, but across Gloucestershire. You can present another point of view in the chamber. You can actually start making points that nobody else is going to make. You can ask pertinent and relevant and irritating questions, and you can keep asking them. And you can move motions, and sometimes, rather unexpectedly, they get seconded. I've no worked out you go and have a conversation beforehand with whoever you think is going to be friendly, but it has happened that I've moved the motion and it's been seconded unexpectedly by one of the Liberals from the District Council. It was after the Tottenham riots. The leader had got up and presented a motion thanking the police, writing to the Secretary of State expressing their thanks and how the Gloucestershire police dealt with the riots in Gloucestershire. And I stood up and put an amendment that we also request that the cuts to funding that the police force was about to receive, that the Secretary of State would withhold those cuts until after an inquiry into the riots and the policing of the riots. And the Liberals stood up and seconded the amendment, which put them in a rather interesting position. So, if they supported my amendment, they would basically be voting against their own government. If they voted against the amendment, they would basically be voting for cuts to funding to the police force. They were not very happy. The leader was incandescent with rage almost and stood up and accused me of being overtly political. My finest hour. So do we, as Greens, do politics differently? Well, no. We will take the opportunity to embarrass and irritate our political opponents when the opportunity presents itself. But yes, we do politics differently. We have a coherent philosophy that we follow through. And it's based on the economy, it's based on social systems, it's based on communities, it's based on all of those needing a sustaining environment, a sustainable environment. So we will develop and pursue actions and policies based on social justice, resilient economies, and robust environmental stewardship. These are not three separate silos that you can go and look at one or the other. We'll just drop that one off a bit because it's probably politically unpopular or we don't have very much money. They're not separate. And Caroline Lucas said the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. And that has rung so true when she said that. It just encapsulates what I believe. So with that philosophy, we strive for a joined-up approach. Not everybody does. So, for example, if your economic policy is going to be built, one of its main plans is going to be built on house building as a major driver for economic growth. How can you then, as a local politician, stand up and oppose every single planning application that has been put forward by profit-driven speculative builders? It doesn't make sense. Either that's your economic policy, that you're going to support house building to drive the environment, or it's not. So that position is one that I do not feel that Greens would take, but it is a policy. It is a position which is being taken forward up and down the country by local politicians. So Greens will behave like politicians. We will take opportunities when they present themselves, but I feel we do follow through a coherent policy. But apart from putting in a few rogue amendments, without power, as a single representative, what can I realistically achieve? What change can I make? So coming to do this tonight and thinking about it, and thinking back over the last 4 years, I think in retrospect, I could have been much better at the profile raising. I didn't press release the amendment about the police. I mean, it was borderline stupidity not to have done that, you know. It was an absolute open goal. I didn't do it. It just wasn't part of what I was doing at the time. I will do it in future. So, apart from better publicity, apart from making the arguments about the link between the environment, the economic, the social justice, what have we actually achieved? And it's been relatively small, I have to say. Prayers no longer take place at the County Council. It's quite minor, but it was completely irritating to be asked to stand at the start of every council to take part in Christian prayers. We have raised, I think, and I have changed the debate that takes place at county. I have continually raised the question of emissions and CO2 and climate change, because given the choice, that would have just slipped off every other politician's agenda. They just do not want to think about it, they don't want to cost it, they don't want to qualify what is going to happen. They don't actually know what to do about it. They can't see what steps to take. So we have kept that on the agenda. We've raised the issues of the cuts and what is going to happen because of the cuts that are being made. The impacts are yet to be felt from the cuts. And sometimes, I think the analogy of the cuts and what's going to happen is a bit like the state of our roads. So, I mean, I have almost joined the pothole brigade because of the state of Leicestershire roads. I've resisted for a long time. But at the moment, to me, the state of our roads are actually indicative of the state of our county-provided services. It's still working. Bits of it are pretty good. That bit of the Snag Road, just down at the junction, is really nice. About a quarter of a mile, there's not a single pothole there. Some of the road system actually hinders what you're trying to do on the road. It actually is incredibly difficult to use parts of our roads. If you're on a bicycle, I mean, I know cyclists now who've gone and bought new bicycles, new tyres, because they can no longer cycle on the roads. Bits of our road system collapses. Parts of it stop working, and we then need expensive remedial action to get the whole network moving again. But overall, the service provided to us is deteriorating. And that is what is happening to all of our county services at the moment. We can't see them like we can see the roads, but that's what's happening. They are riddled with potholes. So we've kept making that point. In terms of effective change, I think it has come down to two issues: traffic and waste, roads and rubbish. Rubbish. So what we've done in terms of the whole waste debate that's taken place in Gloucestershire was we were the only political party, the Greens were the only political party who submitted evidence to something called the Waste Core Strategy, which is basically the underpinning document for how any planning application coming forward about waste is going to be decided in Gloucestershire County Council. So it was really boring, it was incredibly tedious. I mean, the document itself is about this thick, and then there is like reams and reams and reams, an unbelievable amount of supporting supporting evidence to do with it. Three of us ploughed through it, Chris Harmer, Gerald Hartley and myself, and we looked at this stuff and we looked at the evidence for the Waste Core Strategy, and we said, no, we think this is wrong. We think it's wrong for this reason, and we think you need to change this, this and this. We submitted it, we turned up at the inquiry in public, we argued the point. It wasn't just us, various people were there, Friends of the Earth, CPRE, the Cotswold Conservation Board. There was a whole range of various bodies there. We argued that point because we understood how important that document was to making the decisions for Gloucestershire's future. It was boring and tedious, but we bloody well did it. So what that meant, when the planning committee met and was going to make its decision about Javelin Park, the figures in that document that they were deciding against, which would justify the need for the mass burn incinerator, had massively been reduced down. Now, I'm not going to stand here, I wish I could, and say, that was because of me, that was because of Gerald and Chris. It wasn't just us, we were backed up by a whole range of other people, but we were all making that argument, and the inspector took that argument and he changed those figures. And there was then no need, there was no justification for that mass burn incinerator. And what will happen when the inspector comes to decide it at appeal, because there will be appeal, I imagine, he will be using that Waste Core Strategy to make the decision. I probably will be a man. So we saw that importance, and we went down and we did it, and we worked really hard, and we have made an effective change. You know, I spent 4 years asking questions at the County Council as well on waste. I mean, sometimes I thought the only reason I turned up at the County Council was to have another set of questions aimed at Stan Waddington on waste arising, CO2 emissions from various different types of treatment for waste disposal. I mean, I just kept going. I changed the questions slightly. The chair, you know, used to get really cross because I was asking the same question again. I said, perhaps you'll answer it this time, Chair. But it does mean if we focus and we keep going and we've got the scientific evidence base to back us up, we can effect change. So, and we can do stuff. Level, but we also have representatives in Gloucester on Stroud District Council, and the District Council has actually been really good at also taking that philosophical basis and actually implementing it, the green philosophical basis, and making proposals and policy based on that understanding. The District Council is going to invest £12 million in making our social housing more energy efficient and generating an income stream for the District Council. It's going to benefit tenants in terms of warmer homes and lower bills, what Natalie was talking about. It's going to protect those people as well into the future. It's going to insulate them not only from the cold, but also from rising fuel bills. It's going to reduce CO2 emissions, it's going to generate an income stream for the council, and it's also going to put that money into the local economy. It makes absolute sense. As Natalie said, why isn't everybody doing it? And last night at the District Council, the District Council made a decision to introduce a retro fund. So, where next? Well, let's make the assumption that I'm going to get back in. Yay! And maybe we'll even have some more Greens with me as well. I will want to continue working with the party, and also what's been incredibly supportive is working with the Town Council as well. That's been really, really useful. In terms of the 20-mile-an-hour plan for blanket area for Stroud District Council, some of the benefits of which Natalie's already talked about. I want to look at flooding, flood alleviation. The Environment Agency is looking at publishing, probably after the county elections, a plan for a coherent a coherent water management strategy for the whole of the Frome catchment area. I think that's really, really exciting to have that joined up idea, not just looking at flooding, but looking at water quality and looking at biodiversity. So my dream of paddling in the Frome as a newly returned salmon goes swinging by. Roads and public health. I really, really want to link our transport system to the public health of the people who live here. Yeah. Out of every £10 that are spent currently in the National Health Service, one of those pounds is spent on dealing with type 2 diabetes, or the impact, the effects of type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease which we do not have to suffer from. If we can make our roads places that we feel comfortable walking and cycling along, we can go some way to remedying that. I want a big push on our roads. And I want to build on the work done by the Green councillors at Stroud District and take some of those ideas about energy and a resilient energy supply and insulation to the county and get something implemented at county level to do that. Do Greens govern differently? Well, we just might. As people, we do have the same drivers as everybody else. We're still all driven by ego. We all want our family to think we've done a good job when we go home. We are the same as everybody else, but uniquely, we have a scientific basis for our policy. Uniquely, we have a no whipping system, so it means that we have grown used to the idea of agreement and consensus when we enter into politics. And ultimately, I think we have a respect for the people that we represent. We have to stay in government. We have to have more people in government. We have to do this to gain a more equitable society. Real opportunities for all of those, for all of us, so that we can take risks, so that we can be entrepreneurs, knowing that we have an agreed social contract underpinning us if it all goes horribly wrong. And also, so that we can have an unpolluted, diverse environment that can support and nourish us. So, that's it. More Greens in government for all of those reasons.